Okay.
We're
Like now, we're going live now.
And we are live now, or
we
we?
are
Oh,
we
okay.
are live now.
We are live now.
Hola,
I was trying
people.
to clue you in real fast, Hunter. You
Well,
must have made.
Sorry.
that's why I did the laughter.
You
Hello.
did that like 2 minutes ago too.
Oh yeah, I was testing. Um, Hi, people. DWT Deviant Witchery Time. I apologize. It's my fault that we're late. Um, Hopefully, y'all are drinking something good because I am. Tonight we're talking about what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about familiars. We're talking about the psychic, and we're talking about the medium, and how all three aspects are very important to a witch's craft.
This is volume 2 of the classic series.
Volume 2 of the classics, absolutely. And y'all, the Q&A is up. If you have any questions, feel free to utilize the Q&A, and the only way you're going to do that is if you click the Google link, go to the event, and ask your questions. And I'm kind of rambling because I'm going to give a few minutes for people to check in and to get here and to be present. So yeah, familiars, the psychic, and the medium. And this is volume 2 of the classics.
Do we have any ranty rants that we'd like to partake of before we start?
We always got ranty rants. Oh my gosh.
I feel like I had like a really good rant thing to comment on, but I forgot it. So
Really?
Go away! Are y'all seeing him?
I did. I saw it. That's why I'm laughing.
Go away! I love you. Go. I
He
swear.
can come and talk to us.
I don't even know.
We're all frazzled tonight.
I want to rant about the fact my family won't leave me alone until I'm doing something.
Okay. That's the interesting thing. And before we get into the topic, that is something that I want to comment on because I noticed that was something that's very frequent in people's practices when they start to practice and they start to. This isn't a rant. This is just kind of like whatever. But when you start to practice and when you take that step and you devote yourself to your craft, a lot of things start to happen and open up where there will be obstacles. There will be like what I call entities that step into your practice. Y'all are gonna make me laugh when I can't. Anyways, you will deal with a lot of challenges. You'll deal with a lot of things that uproot, and it will make you question your practice and your path. And you know, if you don't stop. Oh my gosh.
But that is so true. Sometimes it's just in the form of, general bullshit. Sometimes it's in the form of your family likes to fuck with you while you're trying to do important shit.
And not just, and some people that you're going live with too, look at them, they fuck with you too, like trying to throw you off, make you laugh and shit, and throw you off your game. But no, seriously, I had a few people, actually the past week or so, they came to me and they expressed that, once they decided to devote their time to the craft, it seemed like everything got in their way, everything like went to shit, and was it because they chose to practice the craft? And I was like, yes and no. Because you start to devote yourself to something good and something that's going to better yourself and promote growth, there are going to be things that want to keep you where you are. And so you have challenges that arise. You have all kinds of things that will surface that you have to process and you have to deal with. And so sometimes that can set you back, or it makes you feel like the world's out to get you. But really, it's just giving you the opportunity to set your beliefs in stone and to really set your... to know that this is what you want to practice and to move forward.
Also, I think
right.
a little bit that has something to do with previous belief systems and thought forms as well. Because
Yeah.
if you come from a belief system where the craft is necessarily or not necessarily a great and wonderful thing, then you might almost create these things that keep you from practicing it because in subconsciously you are not allowing yourself to flow in that energy. Because you think about it, coming from a Christian place where, you know, in the mainstream Christian religion, you know, witchcraft is bad and, you know, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live and all that bullshit. So, yeah, your thought forms, your previous beliefs might get in that way and then manifest themselves in tribulation and trials that can fuck you over.
Yeah.
That is very true. And then not even counting the fact that, you know, as we three have experienced very recently and all the time, you know, whenever you get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't want to learn about that. I don't want to experience that. That's not for me. That's exactly when it's going to be all in your face constantly. You know, so, and that can be really daunting, especially if you really have like legitimate fears or, you know, just an obstacle for yourself, you know, like your own obstacle in learning something new. So, but that is the way of the witch a lot of times because as soon as you say, oh, I don't do that. That's not one of my things. I'm not a dreamer. I'm not a
Well,
tarot reader. I'm not a
that's what I have to say about that. Okay, we'll get into familiars like right now, but I have to say that because we had we had a conversation the other night, and I was like, I don't dream, like I'm not, you know, I hate dreams. Like Melissa keeps pushing to have a show about dreams, and I'm just so not. I'm not necessarily against it. I just don't like it. I don't like dreams for some. I don't know why. And that very night, I had a prophetic dream. I had a lot of dream experiences, and I was like, "Fuck you, Melissa. Fuck you."
Legitimately just had this conversation prior to you coming
yeah.
on.
Really?
I said the same thing, except I didn't say fuck you. I just said it happened.
Oh, I
I'm
Like,
not,
thanks,
fuck
Melissa,
you.
thanks.
I'm not
Thanks.
nice in here.
Well, I'm just honest.
Bless his heart.
Okay, so familiars, and now that we've bullshitted for like a few minutes, and we've allowed people to kind of like take their spot. Before we begin again, I'll reiterate: if you have any questions, if you want to add to the discussion of whatever we're talking about, use the Q&A. It's there for you. We're happy to be of service and answer any questions that you may have if we can. So familiars. Why don't you all express what you believe familiar is and why it's important in witchcraft?
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, because it was your idea.
Let's see, familiars. You know, familiars, as much as some people like to say that, oh, my cat Fluffy is my familiar, that is not, in truth, what I believe familiars to be. Mainly because your house cat Fluffy is not going to be able to go out and gather information for you, especially if they're like, you know, confined to the house. And now I'm not saying that your cat Fluffy might not wander into your circle and yeah, I love that. Might not wander into your circle and loan you their energy. That is definitely a possibility, but that does not make Fluffy your familiar. A familiar spirit is a spirit that, you know, presents itself to you as your assistant. It is a spirit, and it's not necessarily an animal. In fact, it's just a spirit. It can be a spirit of anything, really, but it is a spirit. Usually, at least in my experience, it's not a once human spirit. It is like, you know, just for me, mine is a nature spirit. So it was never alive. It was never human. You know, it doesn't belong to an animal. Not to say that it can't possess an animal, but it is not an animal.
And
And I hope I'm getting this across in an understandable way.
you're explaining it very well, and I agree. Like, I'm gonna be a dick here for a minute, and I try not to, because this has happened so many times, and we've had this legit conversation several times about familiars, and yeah, I just have to say that no matter how much you really, 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 really want your poodle or your guinea pig or your rabbit or your hamster or your cat to be your familiar, 95% of the time, I'm not going to say that there's not a breach of possibilities there that can happen. 95% of the time, they are not your familiar. You're calling it a familiar and not understanding what a familiar is. That's all that is. That's fine if you want to call them their familiar, but this is not Salem from Sabrina. This is more Toad from Salem.
Well, Salem from Sabrina was actually a perfect representation of a familiar because Salem was an actual witch.
That got turned into...
Boom.
I'm going to slap him.
Boom, motherfucker.
But I think that pop culture in that way kind of puts something in the minds of witches that makes it seem like a house pet.
Right.
And that's the problem. And it's not just...
But that was the folklore, too. That was the folklore, was that black cats were witches' familiars. You know, that was the urban legend that stems from, like, I don't know, since there have been witches. Well, because of the way our familiars can possess animals and use them to to do our bidding. Sort of like the Raven with what's his face in Vampire Diaries. It wasn't actually him, but he would like control it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yes, I agree. But in that thought form stemmed from witch trials, where shape-shifting was the aspect of that, and there were spirits that took the form of these animals, but they did not take physical form of these animals. That's the problem there, that I think that manifested into the folklore about cats, and then several different parts of pop culture kind of invented that idea, and it kind of fucked with mainstream witchcraft. And I'll say like modern witchcraft, like when your practice is more Wicca in base and not truly Wiccan, more like your eclectic witchcraft, your eclectic modern, things like that. Not like traditional witchcraft, because a lot of traditional witches go strictly from the witch trials and the folklore.
Okay. So Wiccan Fury, would Kit the Cat from Charmed be a better example than Salem from Sabrina? I would say that they're kind of both. If you have a full understanding of what a familiar spirit is and what familiars do, they can kind of both be examples, because a familiar spirit is definitely a spirit that can take animal form, but it is a familiar spirit, and that spirit has like sentient essence, and it is a helper, and it has knowledge and wisdom, and it has special powers that it is able to utilize. And so in that respect, Salem and Sabrina, with our knowledge of what a familiar is, that is a good kind of a connection to connect our mind now to what a familiar spirit is. Kit from Charmed was also kind of a good example, and the only reason I say that is because the cat was always like bringing like energy or bringing something to them or connecting the witches to something, so it was being of service, it was doing something, and that's a good example of what familiars do. They are of service to their witch.
Right, but they're still the biggest downfall of both of those examples is the fact that it makes people think that familiars are a cat that wanders up to you on the street and takes a shining to you.
Right.
Or
Right.
the fact that your house cat that you raised since a kitten always follows you around. They follow you around because you raised them since they were a kitten and they love you. And you feed them fuckers. They don't give a shit otherwise. They're not there to like help your spell necessarily.
Exactly.
You know, they love being around your energy, and I won't even say that they are, you know, animals in themselves. And this is sort of getting off topic, but they are a lot, especially cats, in my opinion, are a lot more aware of the spiritual world than most people. But that still doesn't make them a witch's familiar. And to me, and I'm not even sure where, besides the urban legends and the folklore, I'm not sure where this comes from, because honestly, even back whenever I was like starting out and would read all these books based on Wicca, never, ever, ever did I read that, hey, your cat might be your familiar. That just wasn't something I ever recall reading. So
Well,
I kind of blame Hollywood with all that. Or just something maybe I haven't read.
Or the old fucking YouTube community, because Jesus goddamn Christ, like, I'm in a mood apparently tonight because I'm drinking bourbon. So, but yes, if you get
when
on
isn't he
things
moody,
like,
y'all?
What'd you say?
I said, when isn't he moody, y'all?
Okay, no, I guess what I'm trying to say is, without being rude to people that are potentially ignorantly wrong, and I guess if that is what, you know, if that's what they're okay with and they're content with, and that's what they're considering their familiars, then that's fine, wonderful, dandy, that's great, whatever. But again, to explain what a familiar is and the ability of a witch to have a familiar is hard, because there are sentient beings that are considered familiars, that are actual, that is what they are. And then there are other spirits, for example, like Melissa's, with hers being a familiar that is a natural spirit in and of itself, but it has linked to her in service. The contract there has made that spirit a familiar, whereas there are actual familiar spirits that are just familiar spirits. And that's the hardest part to kind of wrap your head around, because a familiar can present itself and it's just a familiar. It is a spirit that is in and of itself in service to a witch. Then there are spirits that you can contract or contract on their, or they contract to you and they're attracted to you in and of their own, because of their own reasons, that kind of create that bond, create that contract, and then you kind of grow from there. But what are you smiling about?
Nothing. I'm just listening to your contracts and bonds. I'm just listening.
Do you agree or do you disagree?
I absolutely agree. I agree, y'all. I agree. And I just wanted to say, because, you know, he's going to get on one and it's just going to go. It's going to go for days. So before we lose track, I just wanted to say the unfortunate thing about it is, with, you know, assigning a familiar to an actual animal body, that's just ignorance. That's not necessarily, not even misinformation. It's ignorance on the witch's part. Because if you do your research, you will understand that that's just not the case. You know, we already understand this. And yes, I do agree that there, you know, exactly everything you said, I concur. And some believe that yes, you can go find a familiar, but usually familiar comes to you, or the devil, you know, blesses you, gives you your familiar, or your first, at least.
Right, and you know, speaking, you know, of the types of familiars, you can have a familiar that was once human. They're not always necessarily, you know, not a human entity. So it is a possibility, and to me, it goes a little different, you know. I think a lot of people get confused as far as like spirit guides versus familiars. Familiars serve you. You know, they do guide you in ways. They can definitely lead you and help you create spells, you know, kind of lead you in the right direction
Right.
in a way. But for the most part, they just serve you. They do what you tell them
And
to.
it's not, okay, and it's really hard because it's not necessarily, it's not like a slave type of
Right,
connection.
exactly.
The familiar spirit and the witch understand their roles together, and so the familiar spirit, you know, works with the witch to create, to grow, to get certain things, and the witch also does things for the familiar spirit. So there's a let's use some new age jargon. It's a co-creative process, and you both
Like
benefit.
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, yeah,
You both feed off of each other. You know,
Most
it's you both get something out of it. It's not just you getting the benefits because your familiar does get something out of it. That's why you have the whole, you know, familiar tea sucking on, you know, the witch's mark or whatever. Because it is definitely a symbiotic relationship. It is you know, you both get something out of it. You feed them, they feed you. It
well,
is a mutual beneficial blah 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 relationship. You know, and it's not one of servitude so much as it is of
it's almost like
coexistence.
well,
You know,
you're right, and if it goes in the line of servitude, it's equal servitude. Because here's the thing, is that a lot of people will have this thing that the familiar is in service to the witch, and that is true. But the witch is in service to the familiar in a lot of
right,
ways as well.
right.
It's not this enslavement like chain
No,
bond thing. It's again very symbiotic, very the witch serves the familiar as much as the familiar serves the witch. And why this really ties into the classic series, because we just kind of started talking about it, but this is the classics, which if you did not watch Volume 1, I encourage you to go and watch it, because it kind of explains what the series is about. But the classic series is kind of like, I don't want to say basic, but like kind of very specific to witches. Their classic abilities, classic skills of a witch, and why familiars did not go on its own. Because you could have have an entire show on familiars, but
we really
the fact of the
can.
matter is that it is a classic, very traditional ability of the witch to acquire a familiar. And again, you go back to, like, for example, like, we have no proof, and it's speculative of such things like the trials of Isabel Gowdy. You know, that's one of the trials that speak very, very specific of familiar spirits, and we can only guess that those familiars could have been human. They could have been familiars on their own. We don't know because she doesn't go into detail about them. But while I'm pulling from that witch trial and folklore in that essence, is that since the beginning of any kind of documented witchcraft, there have been familiar spirits. Therefore, we can only conclude and pull from our own practices that it is a classic ability of the witch to acquire a familiar.
Yes, it is. It really, to me, and this is how I believe, it's a witch's birthright. That's part of who we are. A familiar is our birthright. It's what a witch is missing out on so much when you don't have your connection to your familiar, or you know, not to say you can't have more than one, but there's just that one that is. But and I'll go back to the whole animal thing, and that's kind of like why you see a lot of representation as animals, because one of the best ways to you know, kind of work with the, you know, everyday life is for a familiar spirit to take on the form of something that's not going to look too conspicuous, you know, not to be too crazy.
right.
And
You don't want them roaming around
not
and
gonna have
like
big
sheep.
yeah, you're not gonna have a big ass
Chain.
dragon or something.
Right.
But it's an amazing experience. I will say that it takes some getting used to, and it can be very scary. Very, like, especially your first, depending on the type of spirit, the familiar spirit that you interact with. And I think, and I will connect it back with the Sabbat, is a lot of the energies that you experience when you experience like familiars. They're the essence of the Sabbat. So you have these old energies and these old like witches and other beings that come here to be a part of your life, and these are creatures and beings and beautiful experiences that may not have been here in a long time. So you're not necessarily used to the type of energy that they bring to the plate. It can be very overwhelming, and if you don't, I don't really think anyone's fully prepared for the experience. But if you're not prepared, it can really shock you. But there's a part of you when you have this experience, when you have the interaction with the witch and familiar, there's a part of you that understands what's going on. You understand that there's this connection that has to happen. You understand that the familiar, to kind of like seal the deal, so to speak, you have to have this feeding of sorts, and you understand that that's what's going to happen. It's interesting and powerful. Because you're familiar, like just like ancestors, everyone says, your ancestors are out to, they got your back. That's not always the case, Depending on your ancestors, they might not have your back. They might want to see you, go through some challenges. As spirit guides, some people believe that spirit guides can only interfere so much. They're more of the higher vibration, so they're always telling you to, lift up higher, blah, blah, blah. There's so many different rules with other guides and stuff, but your familiar spirit is so tied to you that it wants you to thrive at all costs, because your life, its life depends on your life. Your life, in a sense, is connected to it. So the familiar spirit is your close and trusted ally.
Yes, that makes me think of Bless Me Fatima. I don't know if you've seen that movie. If y'all seen it, I know Michael has. And whenever the owl that is housing her familiar spirit, like basically, I think it's shot, but her life and its life were so closely tied. She was dying anyway. So it's like they both died at the same time, and that is very much the way it is between a witch and your familiar. Your lives, your energies are so closely tied that whenever you're gone, so is that familiar spirit, at least until it comes back, reincarnates, whatever you choose to believe happens when you pass on. But yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing, just like in that movie. In fact, honestly, if you haven't seen that movie, you really should, because it is very, to me, extremely accurate portrayal of witches in the craft. It has a lot of really good points. I know it's kind of off topic.
It expresses the Mexican nasty ass, gross, like,
And I would say that, though I don't disagree, I will say that, and again, it just depends on the witch, because there are familiar spirits that are given, and just as quick as they're given, they go.
Right.
And
well, there's some familiar spirits that are hereditary in certain large witch families that they literally pass down. I mean, that is something that's big in folklore.
And it's just interesting. What is, again, I'll say that I volunteer this to be a whole other fucking show on its own, because you can so easily go into servitors, you can go into thought forms, you can go into fetch mates, you can go into spirit mates, you can go into a fucking million different ways that you can consider what is a familiar spirit, and just a familiar spirit in and of itself, because there are some that come in and that just as quickly as they come, they leave. And then there are some, like Melissa expressed, that are tied to your life force. that are with you your entire life, and that's it's very interesting, interessante.
Isn't it though? It's absolutely interesting. Yeah, and so y'all, if you have any questions about familiar spirits, feel free to ask. We just kind of want to touch the topic. We will definitely expand on it, throughout our time, maybe in blog posts and other videos. But familiars are something to check into, definitely. Go ahead.
Really, really quickly, I was gonna say that if there's a book that I would recommend reading is Deed Without a Name. Um,
Riley Morgan.
read that because it goes in heavily on familiar work and familiar spirits and the different forms of familiars, and yeah, that's just a good book on. It's not just on familiars;
No.
it's on the craft in general. Well, very specifically in general. But yes, I would say that if I had a book recommendation for this specific topic, it would be A D Without a Name.
Yeah, and that's an really good book. It's very inspiring, and for the witch, I feel like every time I read it, it triggers something, and it reminds me of certain experiences I've had. So I would highly suggest that book as well. And just remember, your animal, especially your animal since you've had as a since you're a kid, most likely is not a familiar spirit. Yes, if you have a familiar spirit, that familiar spirit can ride that animal and take form, for ever so often, but it also can leave, and that leaves your cat, your donkey, your whatever, back to its original format, and so it's not, you know, it's not your familiar spirit. Your familiar spirit is a spirit, first and foremost, and it can be. This should be a whole topic because you can go to plant spirits. Plant. There are familiar spirits that are plants, and I have my connection, and that's they're just here to help us and to see us grow and to see us get what we want. And by us getting what we want, we also in turn help them get what they want. It's just the way it is, and that's the way it's always been.
Yes, I agree.
And since there are no questions, I mean, is there anything else you would like to, express on familiar spirits? Even though there's so much we can say, we do have other topics to discuss.
I'm good. We can move on if y'all want. I mean, there's a lot to say, but
There is, this is one of those times where I'm like, just shut up. It's got to be a whole other
Well,
show.
and briefly, your familiar spirit can send messages. Your familiar spirit can take your magic and place it elsewhere. It can take your castings and distribute them wherever you want. Your familiar spirit can travel and spy. It can ride. It can ride other energies. It does your bidding. It can do whatever you send it out to do. And it brings back information, and as you feed it, you receive what it retrieved for you. So yeah, the psychic and the medium.
These are so broad. Like, Jesus. What do you say? What do you say for the psychic?
Well, what you do say is every witch is definitely psychic. We always channel some form of energy, and when we channel and it flows through us, we connect with it, and it ignites information, it ignites response. Our body responds to the energy that we channel, therefore, we receive visuals, we might have a sense of smell, maybe memory recall, in dreams. So the witch is always psychic. There are many witches who say they're not psychic, but obviously they don't really comprehend what it means to be psychic. Because once I've had I've had moments and experiences where I've talked to people, other witches, and they're like, I'm not psychic, I can't, do that. And then you ask them questions like, well, how do you process energy when you channel your energy, when you cast a circle? How do you see it? Do you ever get intuition, like intuitive hits? Yeah, I do that, and this is how it comes. Well, then that's psychic energy. Like, you are channeling psychic energy. You're just expecting it to respond a certain way, and it's not. It's responding to you in the way that you can receive it. And so you are psychic. The witch is psychic.
Right,
Oh.
and it drives me nuts when people say that, because whenever they say, "Oh, I'm a witch, but I'm not psychic," and to me, everyone is psychic. Everyone, whether you claim to be a witch or not, has those abilities. Whether you utilize them or not is a whole nother thing. But everybody has had those deep, intuitive moments where they just knew something was wrong. And then, sure enough, later on that day, something happens or it's verified. I mean, we all have intuition. If we didn't, and a lot of people think it's instinct, and there is a very big difference between instinct and intuition. Personally, as humans, our instinct has gotten duller and duller and duller, really. But our intuition is still very strong because we use it all the time. We have so many cliches for it. I have a gut, I have a feeling in my gut. I have a hunch. There's just always cliches to describe the same feeling, which is intuition, which is psychic abilities. And people are very quick to say, I'm not psychic, when they just don't, like Michael said, they don't understand what being psychic is. Intuition is the base form of psychic abilities, and
Well,
we all have it and tap into it as a child, from childhood on.
yeah, and psychic energy. Oh shit! I hear myself. Okay, so psychic energy is it's energy. It's perception of energy. It's the way it flows through us. And you have witches who, I'd say, I do have a familiar spirit, and I have a spirit guide. I'm like, well, if you have a familiar spirit and you have a spirit guide, how do you communicate? Well, I talk to them. How? If you're not psychic, how are you talking to these goddamn spirits? Like, how the fuck is that working for you? I just hear them.
Exactly.
You hear them.
Exactly.
Okay. Hey, ding, 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 ding. Guess what, motherfucker? You're psychic. Yay. Seriously. That's just the shit that happens. It's true. Like, in order for a witch to be witch, we have to be psychic. It's just a natural part of us, and in order for us to respond to energy and to receive energy and to interact in the world that we do, to travel in the astral and to travel, to fly, to experience the sabbat, to experience spirits, to cast, everything that we do definitely relies a lot on our psychic nature, because when we cast, we feel, and when we feel, we project emotion, we project energy, and when we project things and then we receive it back, we receive information back, and that information that we're receiving, we're interpreting, therefore we are utilizing psychic energy. So it bothers me when a witch says they're not psychic, because we all are. And we have that power.
Of course, the reverse isn't true necessarily. Not all psychics are witches. A lot of psychics don't. In fact, in many different circles, some psychics keep as far away from witchcraft as they possibly can, which to me stems a lot from our history and our past, which is why this is included in the classics, because it didn't really matter during the Spanish Inquisition or the witch trials if you were just psychic. You were lumped in with everybody else. Much to the detriment, I think, of a lot of psychics. I think there's a lot of reasons why things like, at one time, soothsayers were revered. They were held as like the esteemed person in a society. And I mean, as whole societies, in fact, were sometimes built around a psychic. The Oracle of Delphi, Norse tradition, it's all over. But
Right.
Anyway, and then once witchcraft became sort of center stage, a lot of these things got mixed in together, and no, the psychic wasn't really as revered as it used to
Um,
be. You know. So, and all throughout history, you find that people who, diviners were closely tied with the witch community, if not witches themselves. And like I said, they were held in high esteem. You know, even not so long ago, I remember moving to Fayetteville, and there was one lady who lived on Spirit Mountain, and everyone went to her. Like, it was a hushed secret, kind of. You had to sort of be friends with a local to find out about her, but at the same point, everyone knew about her and would visit her. It was very fortuitous if you were able to see her, because she had been around since my mother lived in that area when she was a child. So still to this day, good psychics are truly revered. They're kind of like the secret treasures of certain cities.
I also think, I hear my voice again. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. I hate hearing my voice, and when I hear that, like the echo, I'm like, fuck, I gotta hear that shit. It makes me uncomfortable. Anyways, so I think that witches we don't give ourselves enough credit in the psychic department because it's just so natural to us. We kind of like psychics are psychics, witches are witches. But we're psychic, and we could thrive so much more in this area if we just honored that this is a part of us, and this is very potent, a very potent part of us, because I can like jump into someone's head over there and channel. I can channel emotions of another. I can have fun. I can do that, and that's a part of psychic essence. I will, because I'm rambling, I will give y'all a technique that I would highly suggest that you play with and have fun with. And do it with before you do a casting. Yeah, lay down your oracle and see if you're gonna cast something. But another thing you can do is take the energy, like take what you're going through at the current moment, and then take your desire for what you want, like where you want to be in life, and then take your current energy, your current essence, and throw it and project it. Project it to where you want to be, or project it like, let's say, a month down the road in a specific spot that you know you're going to experience. So let's say at work. Project yourself a month down the road at work, and then step into that energy, become it, and then express yourself. How do you feel? So you're taking your current essence and you're placing it like a month down the road in your job, and then you're expressing how you feel. You're expressing like what you see. You're expressing, maybe you smell something, maybe you're hearing something, but take that energy, project it, and then interpret it. And so when you can, you're projecting yourself into the future to see possible outcomes. When you do that for a casting, it's fun too, because you can take what you're going to cast, what you already know you're going to cast, project it to the target or to wherever, and feel it, see it. What happened? Like, what's going on? Did it work? Did it work the way you expected? How is it, manifesting? Is it taking longer? If it's taking longer, alter that thread, alter that fabric, and see if there's something else you can do to strengthen it, to make it even more potent, to bring it about faster. And that's all psychic. That's all psychic energy. And you receive information. Don't think about it too hard. Don't sit there for days and like just go and go and go. You need to. It's like instinct. You just have to like boom. The first thing that pops into your head, put it down. The first thing that pops into your head, put it down. Ask yourself a question. The first thing that pops in your head, put it down. That's it. Don't sit there for like hours trying to force something, and just whatever comes to mind, you need to put down, because that will make sense when eventually. Like when you go back, you'll read it and you'll try and tie it in.
Bam.
Bam, that's right, honey. Bam is right.
And everything that we expressed in the Classics Volume 1, Psychic, everything that we've expressed right now, psychic, um, there is no witchcraft without psychic energy. There's just
Right.
not. It doesn't exist. And if you think that, I really advise you to just, again, like Michael said, how do you do the things that you're doing? It is psychic energy. And to add on to a technique that Michael expressed, as much as it is fun to project energy into the future, you can actually also project it into the past. And a lot of our precognitive abilities that we think are precognitive abilities are actually projections of our, again, the whole time is not necessarily linear thing. So you get, well, it's not linear, it's not. But you can actually, what's happening now was happening and is going to happen, and the same vice versa. So you can actually project your thoughts and your energies and your knowledge that you have right at this moment into the past, and your past self is picking up on that energy. And it's very precognitive to the past self, but it very much can be projective energy from the future being. And again, don't think that too hard, because who knows that we don't give ourselves, highlights into the future. Who knows we don't? I mean, we've all done it, most definitely. Most people can say, if I knew then what I knew now. Well, motherfucker, you can know then what you know now. Psychic energy.
Right. But don't get caught up in it. Like, that's the thing, because the future is forever changing. You work with probabilities and all these possibilities, but don't stress so much on it that you lose sight of the current moment and the beauty of the present experience.
Well,
Right. I even know some tarot readers who will not read farther than 6 months in advance because like a whole year reading there's so many choices you can make. There's so many different paths you can take between now and a year from now that it's very hard to pin down. You can only give sort of an overview of what's going to happen a year from now, because like we've stated, time is fluid and the future is forever changing. Point in case, I think we were talking about this after the show last time. I used to have deja vu all the time whenever I was a child, through my teenage years especially. Especially once I started menstruating. That was like, it suddenly hit me really hard, as far as like deja vu, and I would have like whole days that I would see. Of course, it would be like the most boring days ever, nothing super exciting. But after a while, even though I knew what was going to happen, what I was supposed to say when someone came up to me and said what they were going to say, I would just change it. It's like, what the hell? Might as well, screw the space-time continuum. Let's see what happens, And I could change it. There was no, and then the rest of the day, even just the smallest thing, the whole rest of the day would change. It wouldn't be the way I'd seen it before. And that is just the way it is. Time is fluid and ever-changing. So don't dwell like, I've known people who will see flashes of some extremely bad shit going down later on down the road. That is not a set in stone thing. Everything changes. And I've known people who will literally have stressed themselves into sickness, into cancer, into like huge, diabolical like sicknesses that because they've seen things they just knew had to be true. I had an uncle who just always swore he was going to die at 61 because in my father's family, all the men died at the age of 61. And he just knew it. And you couldn't talk him out of it. And guess what? He died at the age of 61. And you could say that he was being, he knew because he was psychic, or he just believed it so much he made it happen. And there's a difference.
Right. And there are a few books I would recommend for, psychic essence. Deborah Lynn Katz, she wrote a book called You Are Psychic, and it's a really weird book. I was trained that way, and it's just very odd, but it works. So I would definitely say check it out. One of my favorite books is How to Rule the World from Your Couch by Laura Day. She makes it fun, very easy, and she's about like results. And she's really awesome. The way she tells you how to mediumship, telepathy, everything. She trains you how to do everything, and that book is really awesome. And it's very short, but it's to the point, and the exercises are very fun. And so you receive information right off the bat. Another book, The Psychic Pathway by Sonia Choquette. That's a good one. That's another good one. Those books are great for a psychic experience. So the medium, the witches work with the dead, and I know some people will say not all witches are mediums, and it just depends. I think that it just depends on how you express a medium to be. I do feel that all witches are mediums in a sense because we have the ability to work with the dead. Necromancy is something that is a part of a witch's. That is something entirely. That's a witch's skill set that should have its own show as well. But the dead is are very important to our craft, and it's something very classic. We are known for communicating with the dead. We're known for working with them, being of service to them, getting results because of them, commanding them. We're known for doing a lot with the dead. And the medium is very important because we channel that information from the other side. We listen to spirit. We communicate with those that have come before us and who've gone before us, those who have passed, and we listen to the messages that they have to offer. And I honestly, communicating with the witches of the Sabbat, I feel, is a form of mediumship because they are dead. They're no longer like, well, sometimes they reside in bodies, but not always. But it's a form of spirit communication, and that's a form of mediumship, and so we all do it. You rolling your eyes over there?
No, I was thinking. It wasn't what about what you were saying. I did roll my eyes, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't to you. Because it's hard to. What I was thinking in my head was that it was hard. It's hard to explain mediumship because again, all witches work with the dead. Would I necessarily consider myself a medium? I would consider myself a witch. So mediumship manifests itself very differently depending on the person. Definitely depending on the witch, but then obviously non-witch mediums exist. So again,
Right.
This is a form of psychic energy. This is a form of psychic manifestation. Some people have mediumship of the nose. Literally, this is a thing. This happens. Some people have the sight. Some people have the taste. Some people have the hearing. Some people channel the dead, and that's a very that's almost very exclusively if you're not a sight medium, you're channeling. So it's hard to
Mm,
I don't know.
mm.
All of it is channeling. It is. But I'm not a sight medium. I can see, granted, I can see energy. So seeing energy is a wee bit different than actually seeing corporeal form of a spirit.
That
And
is
again,
yes.
so,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
again,
And I do agree with Hunter on the fact that channeling, unless you're seeing them, you are channeling in a way. When you smell something that it doesn't belong in, that's not on the physical plane, you're channeling that aspect of whatever entity is trying to contact you. That's
But
happened to me. So, anytime my grandmother is around, I smell cigarette smoke and peppermints. And the combined smell is a very unique smell. If you've ever known any older people that smoke, they usually are pretty addicted to peppermints. And it's a very unique smell, and I always know when she's around. And that is, so I totally agree with you there. That is a way of channeling. It's different. It's not like full body, like possession channeling. It's not that, but it's still channeling in a way. So I totally agree with you, Kim.
And yes, you can channel that because that could be your indication that she is there, again, if you don't have the sight. Also, spirits can manifest themselves into corporeal, actually physical smells. So everyone in the actual vicinity of the spirit is experiencing the smell, and they're not necessarily channeling it. They are physically smelling it. It is actually happening. So, again, these fucking broad-ass goddamn topics. Because, again, mediumship could literally be in its own, because like you said, there are spirits that you can channel and you can see and you can communicate with that are not the dead. So are we talking mediumship of the dead here? Or are we talking mediumship in general? See that, and that's what I'm saying. These are so fucking broad.
Well, to me, whenever you talk about mediumship, it does more refer to the dead than just basic energies and stuff. Because and I see what you mean there, but whenever people like back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when the spiritualist movement was big, mediums were had a specific purpose, and that was to channel those who had passed on.
Right.
That was pretty much it.
Yeah, mediumship is to prove life after death. It is to bring messages and to connect with the dead who have passed on and to relay that message. And to it's a form of healing in a sense, but witches take it to a far different place. Mediumship is wonderful, and even if you can't see, I don't believe that there is anyone who has any, like, if you can channel energy. And if you see energy, then you can see spirit. It's just finding out how to connect that, because, it's just understanding that you can do it, because when people talk to me, when I have conversations, I tend to channel a lot. And so I perceive energy, and I can see energy. I see things create, and I see things form. And it took me a while, but I can actually now see. I get visions. I can actually clearly see. And so seeing energy progress into seeing different things, progress into actually having spirit manifest, progress into seeing visuals and all these other things. So it's just, it's getting rid of certain layers in order for that to happen and to be comfortable in witnessing that, because seeing the dead is not always fun. And I've spoke about this before. I still have challenges with it because I shut that off because I witnessed what a lot of people, I guess, express as like earthbound spirits. I was able to see the spirits of the damned or the tortured souls, and I got all the uglies. It's unfortunate. It scared me. And so that is a terrifying experience for everyone. People want to connect with Granny, but if Granny killed herself, they're terrified of connecting with her because they don't want to see her in that light. And so that automatically creates a belief, that automatically creates a blockage. And as witches, we know, and that's another challenging thing, as witches, we understand that such things are absolutely challenging, and we understand the reality of things. Not everything is, hunky-dory, not everything is pristine and uplifting. Not everything's going to look, cute. So we understand... Go ahead.
Well, no, I totally agree with you. And again, how your mediumship manifests itself and how my mediumship manifests itself are very different, because I have yet to actually physically see any earthbound spirits, any spirit in and of itself in physical form, any corporeal manifestations of spirits, unless there are those weird instances where the spirit themselves got enough energy up to actually present itself to you. Again, that happens. But again, you don't have to have the sight to see those because they're using energy from everywhere to manifest themselves. So that's, again, a whole lot different. And the reason I say this is because I know you and I know how my wife manifests her mediumship. And it's very, very different to the instance that I manifest mine. And earthbound spirits, and I think this is the difference between the medium and the witch, is because a witch is a medium, but a medium stands alone in their own right, in their own power, and they can be both or they can be completely separate. A true, in my opinion, and again, yes, witchcraft mediumship is powerful in its own right, but to me, and in my opinion, I think that you, in the way you are a medium, and the way my wife is a medium, you are almost beacons to the dead.
Mm-hmm.
They are attracted to you to where not the rest of us do not perceive or even experience it that way. I think they actively go to you because there is something unique about you as an individual and her as an individual that attracted them, because you are almost mediums between worlds. You literally fit equally in one world and equally in another. And you are the medium between this and that. And they know that, and you know that. Therefore, you experience the sight and you experience full mediumship in its own power. And you experience smell, taste, hearing, sight, channeling, everything. And that, I think, is the essential difference between the power of a medium and the power of the classic witch medium.
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, to me, there is a very distinct energy vibration between true medium, like where everyone, I believe, can truly develop psychic skills. I do not believe that everyone can be a medium.
Totally.
I think there are just certain people that vibrate on the right frequency in order to experience all the benefits of being a medium. You know, as far as like Hunter went into, as far as seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, everything. And those people are very, I don't think that is a common talent, even amongst witches. Not to say that witches aren't mediums, because we are, but they are not all witches experience it in the same way as someone like Hunter's wife or Michael or me or Hunter.
It's a rarity. It's a rarity among witches. So that right there should just tell you how unique it is in and of itself. Because we are fucking very unique and very powerful individuals. That should tell you the ratio between even us who can have that ability, and how rare and how unique and how increasingly powerful it is above just witchcraft. So a witch that is also a medium is like fucking grand poobahs. And that's not to toot anyone's horn or say that anyone is less than, because again, I would go against any witch that was a medium. I would. It's in a battle of wheels and a battle of magic.
Really?
A battle of shut up. A battle of magic.
Would you like to? Do you want a challenge? Would you like to duel?
My magical skills have nothing to do with their mediumship skills, but they are powerful and unique individuals, and that is where those things kind of like become completely different energies and completely different powers. So when you're talking about like me and Melissa are expressing, and Michael's being very humble, he's expressing humility in a sense where God knows he doesn't express it often. So why he does it now, I don't know. But yes, there's a very different and distinct energy between a classic witch's mediumship and true, actual fucking.
That I've been wanting to say this because these goddamn people be talking like doom doom doom, just running their mouths. Um, you're funny, but no, I wanted to express that even the way you filter your psychic senses or your mediumship. If you don't see, but you actually feel emotion, I think a lot of people what they don't realize is if you feel or however your dominant psychic sense is, if it's not sense like seeing, you can eventually grow that into seeing, but don't automatically think that when it progresses you're gonna just like start like seeing the actual form. What will happen is actually what will happen is actually if you intensify the experience that you have, if you're clear seeing or clairsentience when you feel, if you progress and you grow and you start to feel more and you start to follow that energy, you will start to be able to interpret that energy in patterns, in symbols, in images. You will still perceive it as feeling, if that makes sense, but that feeling will be interpreted to you as an image. So, and a lot of people neglect that. A lot of people do not understand what that means, so they're denying that part of them, and they don't realize that they're actually seeing stuff, but it's being interpreted through a way that they can actually perceive. Does that make sense?
No,
It does, and it has a lot to do with what Diana just said. Her question is, so it's okay that I haven't been contacted so directly. I always feel like I'm being ignored, or maybe I just haven't really proven myself. Maybe not sure how to describe it. And to me, what you're describing really kind of answers her question, because a lot of times we expect the big show. We expect the lights and the fog and the yeah, I just said that answered my question. But we expect the big what we see on shows like Medium, which I'm not saying are even that so far out there, or just so far Hollywood, because a lot of mediums experience exactly what she would experience. But that's not always the way we all experience it. Like, personally, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen a spirit manifest itself right in front of me.
Well,
But,
okay.
in other ways, besides the whole physical sight seeing, spirits have manifested themselves to me. For me, it usually happens in a variety of different ways. It's not necessarily they just
Um,
pop right into my living room. Not to say they haven't,
and
but it's really.
and to kind of put it in a situation is, y'all, if you close your eyes and you heard your dog bark or your cat make a fucking annoying sound, because that's what cats do, they're fucking annoying, you would be able to picture them. If you heard a horse, if you heard the rain, you would hear the rain, but that would trigger emotion, that would trigger response. You would be able to see it, you might even smell it. So that's kind of what I'm saying is your psychic trait, it will progress if you progress it, and it has the ability to activate other senses, but it will still be filtered through that dominant trait. I just repeated myself, but I wanted to, so yeah.
well,
That's exactly it. That's so right, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand that well.
Oh,
it,
Zoe.
and it does. And to go further into advice for, and I'm in no shape to give advice, but I'm going to give Diana advice here. And I will not mention this book a lot. There are two books that I will not mention a lot when it comes to mediumship. Uh, Buckland's book of spirit communication and The Witch's Book of the Dead by Christian Day. Those are two books that I very rarely
Mm.
push to the general public.
Oh,
If there's one that I would choose over the other, it would be Christian's book. And again, not something that, if you want to read and you want to read a book that you're not going to read all the time, by God, read Christian's book because it is very, very eccentric and very biased based on his, but that's what he wanted to write, and I'm not going to say that that is negative or positive in any possible way, because again, it was his book, his thoughts, his experiences. But one technique that he does advise, and I like, and he expresses the meditative state of the. He calls it the visionary state, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a visionary state, but that's what he writes. And he writes that it's a practice that you can put yourself into a headspace that and kind of stimulate that vibration and get in that headspace to be very welcoming to that energy, and there's a dick. Be very communicatory between is that a word? Anyway, Michael, I'm gonna slap you. I'm fucking going to just. Anyway,
We make up words all the time. It's okay.
Just buy the Witch's Book of the Dead.
She says she's on them. She's got it.
She does have it. She has it.
Well, she says got it. I'm on them. So if she does it, I'm sure she's gonna get it.
Good. Read Christian's book. I wouldn't Raymond Buckland's. But read Christian's book because there are some gems in the book, and that is what I'm gonna tell you. But anyway, it's a meditative mental state that you can put yourself in that makes you more aware of the spirit energy around you, and whether you have whatever clair that you want to have, or well, that you actually have. Clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairvoyance, what the fuck ever it manifests itself into you in that state where you're very receptive to those energies, you're going to get communication, and that's what I'm trying to say. And I'm still gonna slap Michael. So.
Oh my gosh, he's so violent, y'all. He's so violent to me. And again, How to Rule the World from Your Couch by Laura Day also talks on mediumship. So definitely check that out as well. Yes, Christian Day's book is beneficial. I'll say that. Zoe says, do you feel that your psychic or medium abilities came fuller as you entered the puberty?
I think
so.
All psychic energy does.
I mean, and it does, but there's a certain, there is a certain energy that you sort of emit as you're hitting puberty with the raging hormones and your body's changing so drastically that even if you're not really a medium, you're going to have a lot of these energies sort of attracting, being attracted to you. And I noticed it way more as my daughter hit puberty versus when I hit puberty. Because when you hit puberty, you're so obsessed with everything that's going on, and you kind of just in this crazy state of emotional distress. I didn't really notice it so much in myself, except for what I've already expressed as far as having deja vu, in the extreme, and different occurrences. But when my daughter hit puberty, it was just things started being just so crazy around the house in general. Which, I mean, it was already kind of insane being a witch here already, and so that just intensified it.
For me, I would have to say no, and I have my thoughts on that, but I'm not willing to share that. But I would say no. I don't feel like they increased. They were already pretty intense. Shut up. No, but seriously, there's a reason why I'm saying no. I don't feel comfortable sharing. But yeah, shut up. But I can see exactly how Melissa said, why it would manifest. I think that every person is going to be different. Every body is different. Everyone's progression is going to be different. Therefore, depending on what you experience or you don't experience at certain ages, that's going to create that situation. So
right. Well, also with women, and not to put us in, not to say that we're better or anything like that, but there's a big difference because women, we start menstruating, and that really is a direct. We know exactly when that energy starts. Where with men, it's different, y'all don't have that, like, specific date starting point. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. You know, with
Well, for
women,
women,
it's
it's like a
definitely
culmination of energy. It's like you build up that energy, and then it's like you release.
Well,
So,
I'm gonna go in between the
right.
two of you, and
Oh,
say
really?
yes, I am.
Okay,
We,
then. Shoot. Go
mediumship, I'm
for it.
gonna have to say, does not it's not dependent on puberty, because
Mm-mm.
every medium that I know has been a medium as far back as they can remember.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, some would say that we are very skillful in mediumship at young ages in general. You'll hear that, like, the older someone is or the younger someone is, the more ability they have to see and communicate with spirits. For example, I don't have any recollection of this whatsoever. I was 4, and my grandfather had just passed away, and I would talk to him every night, like every night. Um, don't remember it, but and my mother said that it was. She seems to think that this was not like a manifestation of my imagination, because I would be speaking to a very specific location in my room. I would be out of bed, on the corner of the bed, looking in a very specific area, answering questions, saying things, responding to some entity who I also apparently thought was my grandfather, which I don't doubt. I totally believe that that was. But my mother's told me that my whole life. But do I have any recollection of it? No. So I'm going to say that mediumship is very different. I'm not going to say that that's not the case for magic, because I think when you hit puberty with your, I think when you change and you evolve and you have so much emotional energy going on mixed with physiological hormonal energy going on, I think that witches in general come into more power as they progress and as they go into puberty, but not mediums. I think mediums just are fucking just like that. They were fucking born that way.
I
Maybe
think
I'm
it
not
depends.
wrong.
Because, you know, there is a lot to be said and a lot of books written about women and their connection with divination and their menstrual cycle. So I think it just depends. Because not to say that you're wrong, because I don't think you're wrong, but at the same time, it's different. It's such a different experience for men versus women, and it's like I said, there's a lot to be said for when that when women hit that puberty and when we start menstruating. It's a whole different experience. It's a whole our bodies change to a little bit more extremely than men's.
Ye- hmm.
Hmm.
I don't know.
We're
I
gonna
mean,
have to agree to disagree there. We do not believe
Well,
mostly
you
okay.
might.
I
in
mean,
men
I'm
that
not
can
saying
get to
that
the
men
moon.
don't change, but women actually start. We actually start losing a part of us. We start menstruate. As far as the actual
Well,
anatomy part goes,
when
women
a guy hits,
have a
Well,
bigger
I was gonna
cleavage
say when.
vein.
well, we also begin to lose parts of
That's true, and I'm not saying that. I feel like I'm being misunderstood here. I'm not
No,
saying
you're not. I
that
us. No, you're
understand what
not.
that's
you're saying.
We're being
special or anything.
we're
No, I
joking.
understand what you're
We are
saying,
we.
but I think that we also are trying to say that what the process of what a female goes through and the process of what a male goes through, they're not the same, but they're just as important. And I don't think
Oh,
that
definitely, definitely.
that just because a female, she releases and she loses blood and all that, that doesn't mean that what the masculine, what the male is going through is any it's different, but it's their own initiation, it's their
Right.
own
I
process, and
I think your
Exactly, and
connection
that's what I'm trying
to
to say. It's not that
but
they're more or less. It's that they're so different. It's such a different experience from male versus female. Not to say that anyone's less extreme or more extreme, but it is extremely different.
It is, and I agree with you, and I do agree that there is potency, and there is power, and there is extreme energy that goes along with menstruation, and that increased power and that increased experience can lead one to experience mediumship differently and in different forms. But again, when it's like, and I guess I should have corrected myself. True mediumship, actual mediumship, not witchcraft related mediumship, but actual true mediumship is almost an internal thing, constant, as opposed to increasingly powerful at a certain age. Whereas I totally agree with you that the female witch does experience something that is almost cannot be put into words when it comes to the power shifts of the menstruation cycle, because puberty really doesn't hit a certain age. You don't really go into puberty, um, male or female, depending on a certain event. A lot of people like to think that puberty is determined by menstruation, but that's actually not the case. Hormone changes happen after and before a woman actually
Oh,
menstruates.
definitely.
So
Yeah, I totally
when it
agree.
says to that, again, that power is there, and it can affect your witchcraft, and it can affect your psychic energy, but I don't think that it's determined or dependent on mediumship as a whole.
Right. I was gonna.
That's more or less what I was saying as far as
I will say I agree, and I only agree because I've had other, experiences with other people who have, expressed to me, and when you're a medium, that's entirely different. The energy is different. I do feel that puberty it does ignite, and it does enhance, and it does like intensify the witch. But as you said, like the medium, it's different because the medium is receiving information from spirit. It's not necessarily like this. It's not necessarily attached the same way as witchcraft and the power that comes with witchcraft. The way you receive in mediumship and the way we connect with spirit is a different type of connection. In puberty, especially in the female, I would say that is very different, and I wouldn't say that would. It can, but I wouldn't say it would be the entire truth where you hit puberty and boom, it's more intense. Yes, for witchcraft. No, not necessarily for the medium.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. But I will say that it is something that is pretty. It has been documented several times that whenever you do go through puberty, your energy changes. So, not
Yeah.
to say that it enhances, but I do believe that light that mediums have changes. And whether it intensifies or not, it becomes, I think, whenever you hit something like puberty, that it is different.
And
Not
y'all,
necessarily. Huh?
I was gonna say, and y'all watching, if you think that we always agree, look at this.
I was literally thinking the same
But
thing.
that's just
'Cause I-
based on just what I've gone through at my house and what I've experienced, especially like I said with my daughter. I could tell a difference,
Well,
and not to say that it was extreme or that it intensifies or even changed the way she views
and
and receives, her mediumship
right,
skills,
and
Right.
here's the
but
thing.
it was different.
And
Here's the
I'll say that yes, I agree with you, but your daughter's a witch.
right. I was gonna
So
say the same
that
thing. I was gonna
experience, right? That experience,
And that is totally true. And that is
and
totally
right.
true.
I was
and
gonna
the
say
reason
the
I say
exact
this
same
because
thing.
me and Lindsay have had these conversations where I've asked her because I'm genuinely curious about how her powers change or manifested, because in my experience, though I believe I was born a witch, I don't believe the full power of the witch really expressed itself until puberty happened. So, of course, my natural instinct is to ask the medium that I have very close contact with to say, well, did your powers change or progress or get heightened? And her perception of things obviously changed over time and age, but she remembers being just as potent as a child. And in fact, she says that experience and age over time almost makes it harder
Mhm.
than
Right.
it does
Yeah,
the
and
natural.
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I do agree that as children, it is to me almost the purest form of mediumship because
Right.
there's not any outside influences. You haven't been like told necessarily that oh that's not right, so you don't know to doubt yourself.
Oh, I mean, my wife was, yeah, like my wife was told that it was Satan. I mean, there, like she was
Right.
fucking attempted to be exercised, like literally. She's been fucking ran through the mill, dude.
Someone tried to exercise me.
It's very, and those things are very, witches are good at hiding. That's kind of our thing. We can glamour so easily, and again, that power comes with puberty as well. Not so much when we're young, because when we're young, we are kind of loudmouths. But over time, very different as opposed to mediums, because when there is a spirit right in your fucking face trying to get your attention and you're talking to your family members and all of a sudden you cannot ignore the spirit anymore and you literally have to talk to it in
Well,
that situation. And again, a medium in and of itself does not have the skill to block out until age and growth and experience goes with that. Whereas again, a witch has skills and abilities and understanding to be able to block and shut down and stop. It has to be a learned trait for a normal medium, to where a witch, it's kind of second nature to be like, hold up, motherfucker, you can find a way.
right.
And
Well,
it's hard.
and that
But
kind of
I'll say that Zoe, thank you so fucking much, because for all of those people, because I guarantee you there's one out there that have watched us and said, God, they agree on everything. It's like, it's stupid that they even do hangouts, because they say that
well,
they just they reiterate each other, and again, that is not the case. And if you knew us outside of our shows, you would know.
You would so know we don't ever agree on
and that's
hardly anything
we
completely.
do have to come to a close soon, but that's the funny thing because Melissa and I were talking about that the other night. Is like we disagree a lot, and we don't see the same way a lot. But when we're here and we express ourselves, it's so funny because we know each other so well. We can interact and disagree, but find commonalities. So it almost appears that we're agreeing, and a lot of people can't separate that. But with this topic and then this experience, it was very clear that while we may disagree on certain things, we can come to, and it showed, we can come to that experience where we agree, and it's very interesting, and it's good for y'all to experience that as well. If y'all have any questions about anything we've talked about so far, please ask. I'll give it a few minutes so you can ask questions, and we're gonna close soon. But mediumship is wonderful. It's a blessing. It really is, and it's scary, especially when it's really lonely too. The life of a medium can be very lonely, and not many people understand that and respect that because when you see things that other people don't, even other witches, like they can't see it or they don't feel it, and you're so used to having that. And it's not just you see a spirit, you feel them, you feel how they feel, they communicate with you. It's not just like you're seeing something, you're experiencing them on a whole different level. You're actually communicating, it's filtering through you, you have to deal with that. And it can be very lonely because no one else really gets it.
Most definitely. And you're complicated people, mediums, you are. Um, Very standoffish people, because you have the perception of the world that you're very, very much alone, because it is a rarity, and it is a rarity amongst rarities. It is unique among the unique, and it is hard, really, to.
What was that?
I'm not entirely fucking sure.
That was
Um,
weird.
yeah, So anyway, what I was gonna say is yes, I would totally agree with you because it's a lonelier experience because you're experiencing something that not everyone can see and experience, and being a witch is lonely. But look at us, so look at everyone
Well,
that is watching this, everyone that is communicating, and everyone that is getting in this community that is watching these videos and interacting with these videos and our comments on YouTube. This is a community. This
right.
is a form of communication, and like the com, this is words, this is expression. For a medium, it is so much less than that because their highest contact is the dead, and who the fuck can they really talk about that with? I can tell you in personal experience that though I know my wife can find commonality with me because we are both different. She has more in common on a psychic level with Michael, and since she has known Michael, her abilities have kind of flourished and kind of blossomed, kind of aided by another medium because she finds common ground with them, and that's not something that she's ever found with another human being.
Yeah,
That's so weird.
I love her. I love my wife. Yeah, it's true, and it really is. And it's not that we feel, it's not like mediums feel like they're superior. It's just, it's different. And like we said, like witchcraft, witches, we have a sense of community because we have our spirits. And the spirits that we work with, we're working with them in a sense, like they're helping us out. Like it's almost like a twisted family. We have that group experience, no matter what. Even the solitary practitioner has a community. A medium not doesn't really. We don't really have that community. We don't have the spirits that we work with. We're of service to. We relay messages. We have to help them heal. It is a rewarding process, yes, but we are working for them in a sense. We are the medium, therefore we are channeling messages. But yeah, it's a very interesting yeah, it's just very interesting. So yeah, y'all oh we have the Deviant Witchery Challenge, and we have a blog post. You should check it out. It's a mixed media challenge, which expresses you can do video, graphics, blog posts, but just you take part of the experience. You use the hashtags. Let us know what when you post. It's a fun experience, and it's a great way to connect with the community. It's a great way to even challenge yourself and express certain things. We have that available, and you should check it out and be a part of it because, again, it's fun. Uh, Subscribe to our channel and share our channel. We love doing these videos. We love talking. We love sharing. We love being of service, and we like to promote discussion. And even when and if and we do piss people off, it's for a good reason. It's to promote thought process. So if we piss you off and you think and it challenges you and you disagree with us, that's cool. If you agree with us, that's great. But everything we do for a reason, and we do with heart. So definitely share our work because that's what we're here for, and check us out and join the group. There's a lot of amazing things that we're about to produce that, yeah, it's going to be fun. Uh, is there anything else y'all want to say before we...
Yes, I would like to challenge, while we're challenging people with the
Shit.
media challenge, I would like to challenge everyone that watches this, either live or through, live through YouTube or later on a YouTube video. But I would like to challenge all of you with a video response. That is one of those ways that we kind of know who is watching, and we have met a lot of interesting people that way as well because we don't always see who's watching us in that way. So that's a way to get a communication. And please direct us to your videos because we want to watch them. We want to see how you are expressing because we enjoy it, and there's not a lot of shit to watch on YouTube. So we want to see those videos. So pick if you want to do all three. But if you want to pick either the familiar, the psychic, or the medium, and talk about it. Talk about how what is your opinion of either one of those, how they each manifest in your life. If you agree, if you disagree, if you love it, if you hate it, whatever, do a video response, and let's get that communication started. And that, again, is a way for other people to be encouraged to watch our videos, and we are encouraged to watch other people's videos, and it's just a network of energy in that way, and that we really like, and we really like to respond to.
Right, right, and that's we got to go, y'all. But that's kind of the whole point. It really is about growing and supporting and sharing. As fluffy as that may be, that's just that the our vision is to grow the witch and to expand the witch and to intensify the witch. Therefore, we must we must support each other. We must educate each other. We must network with each other. And that's kind of my thing is like we want to make sure that witches thrive. Therefore, we have to be a part of each other's experience. So, hey y'all, hey. Yeah, check us out. Subscribe to our personal channel. Subscribe to the Deviant Witchery channel. And have fun. Have fun, y'all, and create. Be creative. Until next time. Peace.